As a longtime reader, lover of books, and the Fantasy Lit track director for DragonCon, I, Seska Small, will never call the Dragonriders of Pern a fantasy property. And I'm going to explain to you why and why this is important, people. One, there may be dragons, but the mechanics used for these dragons is science. They're bioengineered and they're on a colony lost in space, well, disconnected from the rest of humanity. Two, I think it is super important to acknowledge where we've come from in history. Anne was the first woman to win a Hugo, 1968. Then in 1978, she was the first woman to win a Nebula. If you don't know what these are, you should look them up. They're awards for fiction. I consider them industry awards because you have to buy a voting membership to Worldcon in order to vote in these. The White Dragon, book 3 of the original trilogy that started it all, was one of the first science fiction novels to appear on the New York Times bestsellers list. And if you want to say, well, she retconned it in and she added it later. No, she didn't. She always intended this to be a science fiction series. It's why the prologue of Dragonflight Book 1 talks about it being a lost colony. It's also why there's a giant supercomputer in the White Dragon. If you have ever read a book where the dragons talk telepathically to the humans, Anne was the first person to put that into publication and won many awards for doing so. There is also just a matter of courtesy. Anne McCaffrey identified herself as a science fiction writer. She is considered a grand master of science fiction. And in a world where we respect people's identities, we should respect that too. Yes, I'm passionate about it because before I was a Fantasy Lit track director, I was a volunteer in the Anne McCaffrey track at DragonCon. And I had the great pleasure of getting to know Anne, and I know Todd, and she's a science fiction writer, and this is science. I don't care if you say, but the mechanics of the world are science, and identified as that. And by removing that label, we disrespect her, and we ignore where we came from. So tell me, have you read The Dragonriders of Pern or another Anne McCaffrey book? And will you? And it's April. She was born in April. So yeah, I get more passionate about it in April.